Hi doctors, welcome to the Rice Field. This is Dragon GGY and this is the operator Hindsight for your latest CNY limited operator, Shu. Shu is a 6-star guardian in the defender class. Trait of the Archetype can heal allies by using skills. This is a very straightforward and classic archetype in the game. Guardian is recognized by many as a solid archetype. Reason simple, they can tank and they can heal. 2 jobs in 1, and most of the time, they do that decently. Before Shu, there were Saria and Blamey as the previous 6-star guardians. Saria is the most defensive one, while Blamey is the most aggressive one because her design is high risk, high reward, healing by hitting. For Shu, she's got the max HP advantage, and that's more ideal for tanking arch damage with the sanctuary that she's got. If you look at previous members, Spot was your best 3-star defender to start in IS. Gummy, Neural, Hong, Baseline, they all follow the similar principle of having a burst heal skill 1, in other words, first aid, and switching to full healing mode with skill 2. Saria adds team support with SP battery talent and also provides arts buff. Blamey has the highest DPS and HPS out of all previous guardians at a cost of needing to hit targets or get hit, and is part of the sleep crowd control system. So as you can see, the higher the rarity, the more functions they pack outside of just tanking and healing, and that's no different for Shu. Shu's talent 1, when healing a friendly operator, souls the tile they are on and the 4 adjacent tiles that grants the following effects to the unit on them. Recovers 70 HP per second, 75 at potential 5, and gains 10% sanctuary, 12% at potential 5. The sold tile is a permanent effect that lasts until Shu leaves the field. The passive HP recovery it provides is similar to Angelina and Perfumer's talent, so it's effective on enmity units including summons. It does not apply to equipment in stages like the ice cream machines, and it does not work on infrastructures in RA either. This is a strong healing buffer because unlike Medics, Guardians don't heal between skills, so that HP recovery can help her maintain sustain on units that aren't taking too much damage, and it stacks with others. It also provides damage reduction to alleviate the actual healing pressure, and it's especially effective against arts damage since it's by percentage. Last but not least, you can use this to heal enmity operators, but you do need someone else to proc the sowing next to them, and that leads to perhaps the only shortcoming to this talent. It does require Shu to heal once before taking effect. Talent 2, when deployed, if there are 3 operators with different classes on the field, all operators gain max HP plus 12%. If there are 3 operators with the same class on the field, all operators gain attack speed plus 12. When in team, if there are 4 sway operators in the team, all operators gain attack plus 12% and recover 1 SP every 4 seconds. For the first half of the talent, both Shu herself and all the required operators need to be deployed for it to take effect. For the latter half, the sway part, however, neither Shu nor any other sway operators need to be deployed themselves. They can stay in your backpack for the whole game and the effect will take place. So this is a very selfless talent. All buffs are applied to all operators as long as their conditions are met. In daily, the easiest one, obviously, is max HP plus 12%, and if you try, it wouldn't be too hard to get the attack speed buff active as well. The 4 sway effect is an easy to use SP buff that applies to all types of skills. The only hard part is getting all these limited sway members. And out of the 5 we have right now, the ones that are more relevant to daily are perhaps Chongyue and Shu herself. Bringing 2 more in the team can feel a little bit clumsy, but from my own experience and many of the CN players, it is completely fine to bring them just to provide that SP buff and attack buff to other members in team in daily content. If you look on the bright side, it's a faction that's guaranteed to get a new member every year, and as more of them release, this talent is likely to get stronger and more practical to use later on. Shu comes with the Guardian X module trait update. When healing allied units with less than 50% HP, increases healing by 15%. The upgrades update her talent 1. The passive HP recovery is increased by 10 with level 2, and for level 3 the sanctuary number is increased by 5%, and Shu will immediately soul the tire herself is on when deployed. For base, it is more healing to her already high HPS, but do note that the base effect does not increase the passive HP recovery from the soul tiles because technically it's not actual healing. Upgrades increase the HP recovery to 85, which is quite close to Scotty Alta's post warm-up skill 2 97. They also increase Sanctuary to 17%, which is about the same level of Abjurer talents and without the HP threshold limitation. Souling on deploy is massive for her all-time survival because without module, she will need to heal herself with skills first to get it started up. Overall, it's increased healing and tankiness for herself and allies. Definitely a decent upgrade. I would recommend level 3 for using her in any content, but if you want to save resources for damage dealers, level 1 is a budget choice. In terms of impact of the tankiness offered by the module, here's a summary. Against physical damage, the higher the DPH of enemy's attack, the more significant the damage reduction from Sanctuary becomes. Against arts damage, it's effectively resistance, but stacks multiplicatively with resistance. Using Saria as reference, this is the amount of damage taken under different modules equipped. For physical damage, Saria Y by design is very durable, but comparing X modules, Shu will take less damage than Saria starting from DPH higher than 1538. And for defenders, it is around this level of damage that they start to have trouble tanking, so that's very significant for Shu tanking hard-hitting enemies. For arts damage, Shu is tankier than Saria with both modules. Though for true damage, Shu will be at a disadvantage due to Sanctuary not reducing true damage. This module certainly brings a lot of improvement to Shu's survival, surpassing the supposedly more defensive Saria in many circumstances. For skills, my recommendation is Skill 3 Mastery 3 over Skill 1 Mastery 3 over Skill 2 Mastery 3. Skill 3 is Shu's signature skill, and when we discuss what she can offer, we are mostly talking about this skill. For AFK players who have been dreaming about duplicating your Saria, well, here it is. Skill 2 is a pretty solid short cycle healing skill with some good HPS, but honestly, have not seen much uses over Skill 3 and Skill 1. Skill 1 restores the HP of a nearby ally with less than 50% HP by 180% of attack in the next attack. This is a 0/4 auto recovery auto trigger skill with a maximum of 3 charges. The yellow tiles in the diagram indicates the healing range of skills, and the green tiles indicate soul tiles that can extend beyond the healing range. The stats you are reading here don't involve any buffs from her talent 2 because they are situational. This is the same for all 3 skills. For reference, here are all the stats for Saria X Skill 1. Obviously, Saria is able to burst heal more than Shu, but Shu is able to win over with her passive HP recovery with the cycle HPS. It does require Shu to heal once for souling, but similarly, Saria also needs to stack up for her attack plus talent. This skill literally is first aid with a name change. The design is completely identical to Saria, Null, and baseline skill 1, but what's different is that for other guardians, once the ally gets beyond 50% HP, they won't target them for healing. Sometimes it does cause them to die to high DPH enemies. But for Shu, she's able to smooth out the healing by having the passive HP recovery buffer so that her target continues to gain HP between skill downtime. The soul tile also helps them tank subsequent damage better, so despite being the same skill, it does work better being on Shu. And from experience, I'd say the skill is a safe replacement for Saria skill 1 in almost any situation. Skill 2 stops attacking and focuses on healing up to 2 allies within the healing range. Attack plus 120%, block plus 1, and the effect of talent 1 increases to 1.5 times. During skill, her healing interval becomes 2.5 seconds. This is a 20/25 second manual skill. Healing range is the same as Texas skill 2 range. With module level 3, Shu provides 25.5% sanctuary and 127.5 per second HP recovery, which contributes a lot to her ability to keep everyone alive during the skill. Her HPS is 659 to 739 depending on whether the module base effect is active. Comparing to Aya Alter, who recently got her module, her skill 3 HPS is now 715, so basically this is Aya skill 3 that heals 2 at the same time. Massive HPS. Getting the attack interval changed from 1.2 seconds to 2.5 seconds has been a thing in Guardians when they switch to full healing mode. This is true for Spot, Hung skill 2, Baseline skill 2, and some of them even takes it harder at 2.767 seconds, namely Gummy skill 2 and Neural skill 2. But this is the only 6-star Guardian skill to have this design. Compared to all these previous skills, Shu's skill 2 has the obvious advantage of healing 2 targets, and to compensate for that longer interval, she has the increased HP recovery and sanctuary to make sure allies are less likely to fall between healings. And compared to other skills with 30 or 40 SP requirement, the 25 SP and 25 second duration for this skill certainly is more flexible. Having a fast startup also gives it the advantage of sowing tiles quickly to spread the effect of talent 1. Now I don't think there are major cons to this skill, but rather being stuck between the constant AFK healing skill 1 and the function-packed attack heal hybrid of skill 3. Short cycle is nice, but when you think about it, she can't be the sole healing source if you use skill 1, she can't be the survival core facing difficult waves with skill 3 and back up the downtime with medics. But using skill 2 really is an in-between. As a sole healer, it can get sweaty in just 25 seconds. If you back it up with medics instead, it feels redundant, so therefore not the priority skill choice. Skill 3, healing range expands attack and heal allies at the same time. Attack plus 50% when there are ground enemies on a sold tile. Friendly units in skill range gains attack plus 25%, attack speed plus 25. Enemies entering a sold tile will be marked and teleported back to this tile when they move 2 tiles away from it. This is a 30/45 30-second manual skill. The healing range is the same as Zarya's skill 2. The healing stats are as follows, which we will address in just a bit. First, let's go over the teleport mechanic first. The first step is marking a target. During skill, any soul tile, including the ones extended from the original healing range, will mark an enemy if they do not already have one. It's indicated by a seedling mark on their head. These marked enemies will then be given a starting waypoint, which is the center of the tile. So even if they have just stepped on the edge, passing without arriving at the center, the distant track will always start from the center of that tile regardless. Next, the game tracks the distance of this enemy from the starting waypoint. When the Manhattan distance between them and the waypoint reaches exactly 2 tiles, they will be teleported back to the waypoint. In case you don't know what Manhattan distance is, it refers to the sum of distance traveled on both the X and Y axis. To put this simply, you can refer to this diagram here. The result is that when they are marked on the green tile in the middle, they will never be able to reach the center of any of the blue tiles. Teleporting enemies is an extremely powerful tool in the game. First, it's effective on almost all enemies, unless teleporting them will break the game. Not only does it work on enemies that move normally, it also works on enemies that would jump and teleport themselves. However, enemies going through portals will have their mark removed to prevent them having their pathing broken by the skill. This skill has a ground lock-on, or in other words, area of effect mechanic, instead of an enemy lock-on. What it means is that it's effective on invisible and invincible enemies that normal attacks do not lock on, like Mastima skill 3. It is also still effective when Shu herself is in status effect and cannot attack. as kind of a gimmick, enemies will maintain their movement speed after being teleported, so you can play with all the shifting operators to pull some niche but funny moves. Ready's skill 3 and the base effect of Hook Master Module X will correctly track the target's travel distance. Now, there are several significance to the teleport mechanic. It's a very powerful AoE crowd control. You can see this as trapping enemies in 2 tiles for 30 seconds. This is similar to Mostima's skill 3 at potential 5 and module Y level 3, where enemies can move 1.35 tiles in 27 seconds. But Shu has a 45-second cooldown while Mostima has to go through 78.6 seconds. Teleporting is also effectively shifting enemies without having to go through their weight and shift immunities. In permastores, sometimes there can be misses in timing that causes enemy to slip away, so being able to bring them back or just chain with other CCs is massive for those strategies. Creating safe distance for damage dealers and buying time for redeploying allies kinda go without saying, and sometimes being able to TP enemies back is a workaround of enemies' mechanics. The most recent one has to be teleporting the invincible gardener in Ortus Descabismo and sending him into a hole for the taste of his own medicine. With how complicated boss mechanics are nowadays, more are expected to come. So outside of the potential of teleporting, the skill of course provides massive healing. This is the only full-time healing skill from Guardian where you are able to attack at the same time while not receiving that plus 1.3 second attack interval increase that we went over in skill 2 and all the likewise Guardian skills. This is extremely easy to use compared to Blade Machine, who need to hit targets in order to heal. For comparison, under the same condition, Blade Me's skill 3 HPS is 1360.5 and Shu's 1341 is very close with much less restrictions and a bigger range. If you don't have an idea of how high that would be, Shu is able to solo sustain Serta's skill 3 during skill. You can wait until Serta is about to naturally drain her HP and Shu will be able to keep her alive until the end of skill 3, given that there are always enemies on a soul tile. Last but not least, the skill provides a multi-target team buff. It is a watered-down version of Arc skill 3, but it is effective for everyone in range. It can be triggered by any enemy on any soul tile, including ones that extend out of her range. You can see it as a slightly different Suzerain skill 3 providing buff or debuff alongside healing and crowd control to create a good environment for damage dealers to perform. It generally works better with ground units and the ones that benefit more from attack speed buffs. Here are some typical ones, but really it's widely applicable. Skill 3 is why we call Shu a function-packed operator, similar to how we perceived Ines back at her release. We said Guardians are versatile, being able to heal and tank, but Shu takes it to another level with buff and most importantly, her crowd control. You can say the same for Saria, and yes, that's why Saria is also a solid operator to this day. On tanking, Sanctuary helps to increase the one-hit KO threshold, and if enemy doesn't kill in one hit, Shu can most definitely heal anyone back up to full between attacks. She has high HPS in a very big range, can attack when healing instead of needing attacks to heal. She has a crowd control mechanics that literally ignores enemy mechanics, immunity and weight, creating safe space for dealing damage or to stall enemies. And finally, it comes with a team offensive boost. It may not be as big of a buff as Saria's skill 3 to odds damage, but it does cater to a wider range of operators and skills. Here is a comparison between some notable healing skills. Compared to when we talked about Aya and her HPS half a year ago, Shu's arrival has provided us with yet another powerful survival kit. Her skill 2 is basically Aya's skill 3 that heals 2, and skill 3 has double the HPS from Aya's skill 3. So if we have to compare these two, I'd say Shu has the edge on HPS, while Aya's advantage have returned to her ability to heal elemental damage and being able to heal full map. In hindsight, Shu is a 4-in-1 ground support unit with decent tanking, enough to even fill in for Protector in most daily content. You can choose between AFK, short cycle, or one with massive HPS as your skill choice depending on the situation. She's got a crowd control with superior mechanics and finishes with team-based buffs that include max HP, attack speed, and SP recovery buff. Her performance since release, first of all, is a general daily tank and heal option like Zarya. Against high pressure, it's a new survival skill that can live up to the challenge, and you can relay it with others like Aya Alter skill 3, Lopsis skill 2, Nightingale skill 3, etc. Starting from IS4 and transitioning into IS5, there are just less and less 6-star defenders to pick, and Shu is generally the most picked one due to being cost efficient. There's just so much she can do. Against bosses, she can deal with the IS4 ending 2 and 3 boss by teleporting them back 4 more. For those of you interested, she's also a commonly used unit in Reclamation Algorithm, which is coming as a permanent game mode soon to global. She's used in combat events because the game mode have a soft roster lock mechanic, which gives you reason to pull together wacky comps that you don't necessarily use in daily or other game modes. Using a 4-sway squad and having Chongyue lock down a choke point is a common strat, and it's easy and practical. The stages in RA are also more wide open with a lot of ground tiles, environments, and pathing that you can manipulate, and high enemy count that makes Shu's teleport and team buff more applicable. In conclusion, Shu is a 6-star guardian that packs up a lot of functionalities, most notably massive healing and the teleport mechanic that is unique and impactful in-game. Her nature as a guardian also makes sure that she can be easily incorporated into your team in daily content, and she's got all kinds of team buffs to justify that. For daily, I have her at 5. She's a solid tank heal hybrid that fits in very well when you need both of that in daily. She has high HPS skills to get you through tough waves, and various team-based buffs that you can get active relatively easily. However, that's also basically it for her impact in daily. She isn't a massive jump up from other guardians, especially Zarya in this type of contents. As an alternative, you can also feel her job using the original Defender plus Medic combos. But for advanced content, I have her at 9. In CC, you have limited deployment slots. In IS, you have limited hope for recruitment. And in RA, bigger roster size will deplete more food. So for the same amount of scarce resources, we tend to pick the ones that can do the job of multiple people, and that's why Shu is seeing playtime in various advanced game modes. For example, we used to pick Mostima solely to deal with the IS4 ending 2 boss, but then we switched to Shu because while both are countermeasure to that boss, Shu can do way much more on the way to the end. And that also shows us how her skill 3 teleport can be a solution to many mechanics. She's only 9 because I don't think she's that dominant with what she can offer. Sometimes instead of tanking and healing, we can find ways to dodge the damage instead, or just kill the enemies before they get to us. Her talent needs her to heal first to take effect, which can be a bit rigid to use if you are setting up to teleport an enemy. Skill 3 does also come with a medium slow startup of 15 SP, which is quite the time if you are urgently in need of healing. Overall, I think the biggest reason against pulling her is that she's replaceable in terms of the tanking and healing she offers in daily, but you can't deny that she's the most versatile defender in the game. Here are the pros and cons for pulling her in terms of gameplay. If you can only bring one defender in your team, my answer would be Shu after a release, and I highly recommend newer players that do not have Zarya and do not want to invest in the Colonel banner to go for her. A Guardian is always QOL to gameplay. I would also recommend her for players who want to invest in the Sway faction or already do. On the flip side, for players who mostly just do daily contents, Shu is just a slightly more well-rounded Zarya if you think you have enough tools in the survival part of things, or is just overall not too sold on the flashy TP mechanics and the exaggerated team buffs, or do not have much of the previous Sway members, it is pretty safe to skip. For schedule and meta, Shu is the first one out of the 5 Sui operators that we have right now who has a faction buff. She's widely used in different game modes, and as a support unit, they are just less frequently contested by new characters than damage dealers in terms of power. For cons, we have the R6 2.0 collab limited banner right next month that potentially truly won't rerun. More so if you have missed the first one and is planning to get Ash, which I personally won't recommend outside of collection purpose. This banner of Shu and Zuole doesn't feature a consistent damage dealer if you are looking for one. If you just want a Guardian in general, you will be able to redeem a Saria from a free selector as part of the compensation to veteran players from the newbie banner change 6 months later. The difference in experience change from having a solid support and having a versatile damage dealer is less obvious, so always make the decision based on what you're looking for. Here are the rating previews for operators coming. New operators from 2024 summer event are likely to be featured in the Zuole episode. I have also changed ratings for a lot of them starting from Ascalon because surprise surprise, they are all performing very well in IS5. I know having Visadel at 10 and 10 looks ridiculous, and I put her at 9 initially because there are clear scenarios where she can be heavily crippled, for example against attack decrease, but given the fact that she's just able to trivialize stages where others would sweat like crazy, the stark dominance in what she can do compared to others is what justified me to give her the rating and set her truly apart. And with contingency contract being a much less frequent event now, I think it's also justified to weigh IS and other hardcore playstyles more for advanced ratings. I will save the details for when we eventually get to these operators. For now, I wish you luck if you're pulling in the CNY limited banner. I will try my best to finish the Zuole episode before the end of the banner, but I just can't give promises. I hope you enjoyed, leave a like, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.